The same way we started season 2, we got to start season 3 off with a banger, with a great one. And before we introduce our guest, Devontae, I have to say, man, it's a lovely day outside. Hopefully, our government is going to be able to open some stuff up so we can start enjoying this weather.
You're extremely right. You're getting a little controversial to start off the morning, but I like that. It's beautiful. In Canada here, we only have a few months, so we got a great guest, special guest here today. But, the day is starting off strong with a beautiful day.
Not only do we have a great guest in the building today, but we have a legend, a basketball legend, a Canadian legend, a Syracuse legend. We have a former Division I basketball player, former NBA basketball player, and current broadcaster of the Toronto Raptors, Leo Rounds. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
I'm awesome.
We're good, man. We're good.
We are very excited to have you on the show. We can't wait to get you started. And we know, like we talked about a second ago, you have a lot to talk about. Great story. So we can't we're going to get ready. Yeah, wow. Here we go again, messing up. We are going to get ready and get the show started. Devontae, it's all you.
Lil, we always like to start off the show with a little game, get the brain flowing here a little bit. And what we call this game is called Overrated Underrated. I'm going to give you a few names here, non-basketball related, basketball related. You're simply going to tell me, might put your 2 cents in there, if these things are overrated or if they're underrated. All righty?
All right. We'll give it a shot.
All right. First one, bacon.
Overrated.
Overrated? Okay. So, nice and simple. The duo of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum.
I don't think they're underrated or overrated. I mean, I think everybody knows who they are,
Okay. That's fair too. I'll take that as an answer. Right now, the Charlotte Hornets.
Overrated.
Overrated? Okay. No, that's an interesting one. The New York Knicks right now, and being one of the top defensive teams in the league. Do you think they could continue this?
It's a great question. I'd say right now, based on the season, I'm going to give them an underrated. I think they've earned that.
Okay, fair enough. Let's switch it up here for you now. Video games as a whole.
Overrated. Don't play them.
There you go. Out loud and clear. Watermelon.
Oh, underrated.
Underrated. Okay. And last one here for you is, no, I'm not going to ask that one. We asked that one last time. The last one I'm going to ask here for you is the duo of Sean Kemp and Gary Payton.
Ooh.
That was pretty good. I go underrated.
All right. If
it wasn't for Michael Jordan, they'd be NBA champions.
That will always be a discussion. People that were in that era and did watch that show and did watch that era, that is a huge discussion. They did have a great dynamic within those two. And back then you could win with 2 people. So no, that's a great argument right there. But that concludes our game.
Hey Leo, I gotta ask you though, how has 2020/2021 been for you?
I think like for everybody else, right? It's just been frustrating, long, just a odd year, right? I think everybody's been through a lot, good and bad. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of people are really dealing with a lot of different things. So it's been definitely challenging. I think, from my standpoint, I always try to go on the positive side of everything and try to make the best of everything. But I know for a lot of people, it's just not that easy, and it's been a struggle. So I really feel for a lot of people. But like I said, from in every walk of life, and from the Raptors all the way down to everybody on this call, I mean, it's been a challenge, and I think it's everybody's really looking to get away from all this and get back to what we don't know what it's going to be, but normal at some point,
Exactly, most definitely. And I'm kind of glad you touched up on everybody kind of going through this, because for kids in particular right now that are trying to get recruited to universities or colleges or grade 12s or 5th years, what's some advice that you would give to these kids that are losing hope for their future?
Well, one, don't lose hope, and I can tell you firsthand. I have a son that's going through it right now. My son Sam, had a bad experience with a lot of things with Canisius, and he transferred, or he left Canisius, and he's in the transfer portal, which is insane. I mean, the transfer portal's got well over 1,000, 1,500, 1,800. How many players are in there? And with the NCAA allowing players to move freely right now, it's insane. And scholarships are an issue because schools that already gave out their scholarships from last year, they got guys coming in from this year. They don't know if guys are coming or staying. It's a very difficult situation. It's an unprecedented situation. But as I tell my son, all you can do is you work your tail off every single day, find ways to get better, find ways to get stronger, find ways to get quicker, and just keep working, because you don't know. The crazy thing about it is you don't know when that door opens, and you have to be ready for that. And if you're not positive, if you're not working, it's not going to open, or you're not going to be able to jump at that situation. So, it really is. I really feel bad for all these kids that have put in a lot of time and now all of a sudden find themselves up against the wall. And here, I think the important thing to remember too is that door may not open right away either, and that's where you can't let yourself get discouraged. Things might take a little longer right now, but it doesn't mean they won't happen. And I think the way to get through it, the way I've always handled is you got your goal, right? You want to be here. And maybe now you're right here. Yeah. You have to realize that to get here, it may kind of wind, or it may not be a straight line, right? But as long as you got that goal you're locked in, you'll find a way and you'll get there. But again, it may not be as easy or as straight a path as you hope for. But if you have that goal, you're not going to get discouraged.
And one thing I want to touch up on that you said as well is Devontae and I have talked about this a million times. The transfer portal. We had Negus Webster-Chan on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how the perception of transferring was actually a negative thing. Now everybody's transferring. So do you agree with that remark? How it was before compared to now, or what are your thoughts on the transfer portal?
Oh yeah, I mean, in the past it was. Players who transferred always kind of perceived a little bit negatively, right? Maybe you're a troublemaker, maybe you can't get along, maybe this, maybe that. I was a transfer. For example, I transferred from Minnesota and I ended up at Syracuse, and I was the first transfer Syracuse ever took because they didn't want to deal with that. That's how it was back then. Obviously, it's changed over the years because of the urgency to win for coaches, right? Coaches have so much pressure; they don't win, they get fired. So now they'll take chances on transfers, whereas years before they wouldn't take those chances. They wouldn't risk it for perception or whatever it may be. But now you have and the other problem I always had is coaches could get up and go. Coach could get a multi-million-dollar offer here, he's gone. Win at this school, go to that school, and the heck with all the kids. Forget what promises I made to you. I don't care. I'm moving on. Yeah. Well, if you're going to allow coaches who are profiting in a big way to move on and just do what they want to do, there's no reason the kids should be restricted the way they are. Now, you're opening up a little bit of a Pandora's box because it's become a little bit of a free-for-all now. Yet at the same time, you know what? I think the players have been restricted for so long and have been limited, forced to sit out, go through all this NCAA stuff that I welcome this. I hope it can somehow get streamlined and a little better than it is. But I like the fact that players can have a choice. And, think about it. A kid goes to a school and say a coach is not what he represented or a program is not what they represented. And a kid is unhappy. Why should he have to sit out? Why should he be punished? Right? Sometimes it doesn't work, right? How many coaches recruit a kid and then recruit right over that kid because that kid didn't work out for him? Well, okay, then maybe I should be somewhere else. Why should I be prevented from doing that? So I ultimately like giving a little bit of the power back to the kids in this situation because the NCAA has kind of manipulated the student athlete.
Fair enough. And honestly, It's crazy you mentioned that as well because one of your sons are going through it right now too. But I got to ask you though, you have 4 boys. What does family mean to you?
Everything, right? I mean, your family is everything. So everything you do, everything you work for, everything is focused on, what can I do for my family? And I think it's really important. And maybe this has kind of been one of the silver linings of the pandemic, right? People just realize how important family is, right?
Yeah.
How you got to stick together, you got to help each other out, you got to go through this together.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people, now that more people have to work from home, more people have to have their kids home instead of being at school, things like that. You're prioritizing your family more, and not that you didn't want to, not that you weren't trying to, but life gets in the way of a lot of things sometimes, right? And everybody's so focused on work and making money and doing their careers that maybe it's kind of brought a little bit more focus right now back to family.
Fair enough. And honestly, Leo, I gotta commend you on something, man. I read an article on your son Jay, and he spoke about how he informed you of his coming out and him being gay. And your response to him, what he mentioned is how you said, "You're still my son. I love you no matter what." That was very warming to read that, because a lot of fathers, a lot of fathers, males, men, biggest fear is hearing those statements. Was there ever a moment that you struggled with this information, or was it one of those that you just looked at it and said, "You're still my kid. I love you regardless. I don't care if what you are."
That was never an issue, and I told my son, "Look, I'm not surprised. I knew. We kind of all knew. We had a feeling, and we're very open in our family. We're very open. We're very we talk about anything. I always warn people, if you have dinner with my family, I'm not responsible for what you're going to hear, right? Because we're just an open family. We talk. We don't hold back, and so I said, Jay, just based on the way, his stepmom Jamie, my wife, just by the way we are, why wouldn't you just say it? Like, be comfortable with us, because you would know that it's not an issue. And then then a few things come out and you realize, wow, it's tough, because I know one of the things he said that really got to me. He said, "Well, you're the Raptors broadcaster, and what are people going to say?" I go, "Do you think I care?" I said, "Seriously, Jay, do you really think I care what people are going to say because I'm the Raptors broadcaster?" I said, "You're my son." I said, "I love you. And what was cool is that all his brothers, everybody was like, "Hey, you're my brother, man. It's all that matters. If you're happy, we're happy." And that's the way it's been. And so we like I said, Jay's a special young man. He's bright. He's got a great career going, and so we've all embraced him for who he is.
Fair enough. I want to transition right now to the Tampa Bay Raptors. What are your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Raptors?
Well, it's hey, it was a difficult thing, right? I mean, think about it. The guys didn't even know until 2 weeks before training camp they were going to be the Tampa Bay Raptors. So
yeah,
it's a difficult situation for a team, for the players, for the coaches, for the entire organization. Thankfully there was a place they could play, and a nice place. I mean, there are some perks, right? The weather's beautiful. There's no state tax in Florida, so there are perks to the environment they were able to create for the team and find. But it's not home. It's not Toronto, and it really became, it's very difficult if you think about it. If you're Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, president GM of the Toronto Raptors, what are you selling right now? What are you selling to free agents, to potential players that you want to bring in? You can't sell the city, you can't sell the arena, you can't sell the crowd, you can't do any of that right now, and you don't know when you're going to be able to. So it was no other NBA team, nobody dealt with anything close to what the Raptors did, having to have literally 72 road games. So it's like I said, it's not a bad place to be, but not under the conditions that you were there.
That's a great point that you bring up, because you kind of answered our next question. Is that the hardest part about being a Toronto Raptor right now? Playing in a different country, playing down south. Now, we got to ask your perspective at least. I'll ask you for both players. What do you think the situation of Kyle Lowry is going to be? Is he going to stay or is he going to leave, or what's better for the situation for Toronto Raptors? And also Gary Trent, he's coming to the end of his contract. With those two players, what do you think their statuses should be and what Toronto should try to do?
Well, as far as Kyle goes, I think there is a lining to no deal happening at trade deadline. I think that Kyle has a certain number in mind that he'd like to get paid going forward. And I think that scared a few of the teams that the Raptors were talking to, some of the teams that want Kyle. That was a little bit intimidating to them, especially at his age. Everybody knows Kyle can play, but he's not a spring chicken. And I think the Raptors respect him tremendously. Kyle knows that. I think there's a great relationship that regardless of what happens, that's not going to be impacted. But maybe somehow with understanding how other teams looked at your ask or his ask, that it might be able to soften the blow to potentially be a Raptor. Because you got to remember, when you're going to have a legacy deal with a player, there's got to be serious compromise. If the player just wants top dollar, well, then he's going to have to just go somewhere else. If the organization wants to keep him, you might have to pay a little bit more than you want to, but you obviously know you can't go up here. And so there's got to be compromise on both sides if you want a legacy deal to happen. So potentially, maybe it happens, right? It's going to be difficult to see at this point. But I know that whatever happens, the Raptors will work with Kyle to make it a good situation for both parties. And I think that's important when you're dealing with a player of Kyle's stature within the organization after all these years. Gary Trent, I think Gary Trent showed that there's a lot of promise to him. And I think that he himself saw that there's a great opportunity in Toronto, that he can do a lot more than wait for Melo, McCollum and Lillard to get rid of the ball. So he can really grow as a player in Toronto at both ends of the floor, really. So, a lot, again, will depend on the ask, right? I think the Raptors, if they feel that he fits into everything they want to do, they'll make a reasonable offer, and then it all depends on what he's looking to get in the market. So, I think there's one thing that's important that kind of ties into both of these guys. The Raptors have always had a long-term picture of what they want to be and what they want to do, right? From before Kawhi, with Kawhi, after Kawhi to now. And it may not make sense to all of us because they don't share a lot, right? It's not like a lot of teams where everything that's going on. They don't share a lot.
No.
But I do know that they don't make a move that is going to negatively impact whatever their long-term vision is, right? They're very locked in on that. So they have a clear understanding of who they want to be and how they want to get there. And they don't worry about the media. They're not worried about the fans. They're not worried about who's saying what.
Yeah.
Whereas you go around the league, why are coaches getting fired? Why are players getting traded and moved all the time? Because they're listening to everybody instead of going with what they know. So I actually, at this point in time, after everything I've seen, I really trust Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster to know that they have a plan. And I don't have to know the plan to know that they have a plan. And I trust the plan.
And I think 2019, when we win that championship, it puts us Toronto fans at ease. We trust the process. But we have a huge Dookie over here. So I know you talking about Gary, and I think he does fit our repertoire. So it'll be very happy to see him back. Now, let's talk about the Hall of Fame a little bit here. Chris Bosh just got inducted for the class of 2021. Speaking of Toronto Raptors, Vince Carter, do you ever think he cracks that Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, he's going to get in there. The way it's come to today. If you're a multi All-Star, you've had a reasonable amount of success in the league, you're going to get in the Hall of Fame, right? It's not just about having a championship. So Vince Carter has been a name. He's had an extended career. He's had some incredible performances. Like I said, multi-time All-Star. So yeah, he'll be in the. So if you look at the Raptors organization, I mean, you got Tracy McGrady, Chris Bosh, Akeem Olajuwon. People forget that Olajuwon was actually a Raptor. And then you'll have Vince Carter at some point in time that have passed through, and it all will be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. No, it's very interesting nowadays to see who gets put into the Hall of Fame. I think I just seen, correct me if I'm wrong, even Steven, was it Kukos that played with Michael Jordan? He was just inducted. That's been a whole spiel on some website saying, that his career wasn't significant enough. You look at
I think you got to remember though, he was in an international category, right? And so you got to remember from an impact on global basketball. Mm-hmm. Tony Kukoc had a tremendous impact, and he was a part of champions, right? He was a part of championship basketball. So he was one of the guys that paved the way for international players. You got to remember, like when I came into the league, there were international players were nothing, right? Nobody respected them. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was over in Europe, and plus for playing with the Canadian national team, I'm looking at guys going, how are these guys not in the NBA? You had really? Oscar Schmidt, you had Drazen Delapagic, you had all these dudes that, they belong in the NBA, but it wasn't cool, it wasn't trendy, mm-hmm. right? And then all of a sudden you had players like Drazen Petrovic, Divac, Kukoc. They all start coming to the NBA, and then all of a sudden it's cool. We got to have one. We got to have one of these guys, right? And where it comes to today, where international player is a normal thing, right? It's a player. So I think Kukoc is actually very important when you go through the history of the game globally, as far as getting into the Hall.
That's a great point you put up there. Sometimes we forget, being a little bit younger too, you could have a biased answer, but when you put it like that, you change your perspective. You hit on our next point here, playing for Team Canada at just 16 years old. Explain to us on the senior team, explain to us, how that experience was and what that meant for you.
Well, it changed my life, really. I always tell people the story that I was 16 years old, I tried out for the Ontario junior team. And, I thought and remember, it's not like today where you got 16U, 15U, 17U. It was 21 and under. That was the Ontario junior team.
Oh, wow.
So, so I tried out and I thought I should have made it, right? I thought I played well enough to make it. And then they come up, give me the old handshake. Hey, you're too young. Come back again. This time go that pissed me off. I said, okay, all right. And, I'm the kind of guy, you piss me off. I'm not going to go cry. I was already a gym rat. Now you could never get me out of the gym after that. And then, so about 7 months later, I'm playing this all-star game in Buffalo. And I actually got my first scholarship offer that night after the game. We got home about 2:00 in the morning, and my dad woke me up at 7. And he goes, hey, there's a national team open tryout. You going to go? I said, no. Why am I going to go? They're going to tell me I'm too young. Mm-hmm. Right. And he goes, well, look, what are you going to do all day? I said, I'm going to play. He goes, who are you going to play with? I said, I'll get all my guys. They're going to play. He goes, everybody's there. Let's go. Right. So all right. Okay. So if it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't have gone. It was just an open tryout. Yeah. And I get there. So my first scrimmage I'm in, I played really good. I had a jumper, a dunk, a block shot, a little bit of everything in about 3-4 minutes, right? I just went crazy for a few minutes. And all of a sudden, Jack Donahue gives me one of these. Come over here. I got, shit, here we go. You're too young. Thanks a lot. Come back next year, right? I'm just ready for it, right? And he goes, hey, I want to invite you to our national camp. I go, huh? What? What? And it literally changed my life. Meeting Jack Donahue, him believing in me, giving me that opportunity, and then all of a sudden, I go from a kid that's never been outside of Toronto to traveling around the world. And we played in this Intercontinental Cup, and and we played Israel, Belgium, Russia, Yugoslavia, and Italy. We went to all those countries, and then all those countries came back and played us in Canada, and we got smoked. We were a young team. This is after the '76 Olympics, so we only had a couple of older guys. Everybody else was young guys. Now I'm 16. There's young guys like in their 20s, but it's a whole new team. Mm-hmm. And we came back, so we go 0 for 5. And I mean, when I say we got smoked, we lost some games by 50. Oh, and then we came back to Canada, and we went 4-1. And on the second game of the tour, I started, and it kind of was my team from then on. And that door only opened because a player at that time who was, I think, our best player, Ross Quackenbush, coach at St. Mary's. Ross had a horrible ankle sprain in the first half against our first game against Israel. And I ended up starting the second half. We won. I played well. And then again, from that point on, it kind of became my spot, my team, right? And so my life changed. I mean, and I, you're 16 years old, and you're in Toronto. Not a lot of guys got exposure, this or that. By the time I came home from that first tour, I had North Carolina, UCLA, everybody, like letters, calling. So my life changed literally overnight.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up real quick, because obviously you, like you mentioned earlier, you went to Minnesota. You signed in Minnesota. Why did you choose Minnesota? You just said you had UNC, you had UCLA. Why Minnesota? Yeah.
At the time, the Big Ten was hot, right? The Big Ten was a great conference. Minnesota had a crazy arena, one of the largest arenas in the NCAA. They had Kevin McHale. We actually had the best freshman class in the country my freshman year. It was ranked number 1. Trent Tucker played for the Knicks. He was in my freshman class. So we had talent. We had a lot of talent on that team. And I had some kind of contacts and ties with Minnesota, this and that, but it was a tough decision, right? And I don't think I necessarily made it the right way, because back then there were no rules, man. I had coaches at my house, coaches at my school, coaches in my driveway. I had people calling 24 hours a day. I was so sick of it. I just want to sign it and just get it done with. Wow. So it was interesting. It was an interesting and crazy process that really wasn't handled right, because we really didn't know what we were doing, right? Mm-hmm. And like I said, the rules are very different. But like I said, it was Minnesota was still a good program, but there's so many other things. I remember Magic Johnson was at Michigan State, and Judd Heathcote. I only found this out years later. I had to call Michigan State about a video. And Judd Heathcote got on the phone, and he goes, Leo Rautins. He goes, I tell everybody that you and Magic were supposed to be in my backcourt, right? They won the national championship that year where I would have been his backcourt partner. Wow. And I keep saying, Judd, wait, hey, come on, man. I thought that was bullshit. I thought you were just saying that to me to recruit me. There's no way you were going to play 2 guys the same size in your backcourt, right? And we kind of do the same thing. I was the passing guy. He's the pass. So anyway, I just didn't believe it. He goes, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" I kept telling people, "We have Leo." I go, "Man, you're making me cry. You're making me cry right now." But so it was interesting how things could have gone whatever. But I ended up going to Minnesota, and as you know, I ended up transferring. But it was an interesting freshman year, that's for sure.
I gotta ask you though. I read something the other day saying that you didn't have to attend classes when you were at Minnesota. Is that true?
You didn't have to. Guys were getting paid. You didn't have to go to class. You didn't have to.
Wow.
It was a banded program, which I didn't know till I got there, and they had been on probation prior to. They had gotten off probation by the time I got there, and I assumed things were cleaned up. And they went back on probation, subsequently, to me leaving. So you didn't have to. We had guys who were literally illiterate on the team. We had, like I said, it was an interesting and crazy year. I could have stayed at Minnesota and in some ways had a better career, than I had at Syracuse. But The academic component was very important to me, and I wasn't going to spend time in school if I'm not going to graduate. Right? If I'm going to be there, I'm going to graduate. The other thing, when I transferred, there was a rule. I don't know if you remember when Larry Bird got drafted. He got drafted by the Celtics, and because he went to Indiana, he transferred to Indiana State. So there was a rule that you could get drafted when your class graduates, right? So had he stayed at Indiana, when his class graduates, or when you graduate from your new school, Indiana State. So you could technically get drafted twice. So what happened is he got drafted by the Boston Celtics when his class graduated from his first school. And then they had until the next draft to sign him or lose him. Right? So it was a lot of pressure on a team to draft you. So when I left Minnesota, I go, hey, this is great. I'll get drafted twice. I'll have two options. And so actually, believe it or not, that was the positive factor of me transferring, the Larry Bird thing. And what do? They changed the rule 6 months later.
Of course.
Of course. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, fair enough. No, fair enough. And I got to ask you though, because obviously you touched up on Magic Johnson a second ago, but you were second in assists behind Magic Johnson. How I mean, like you touched up on a second ago, like you guys could have literally been that 1-2 leading the league in assists. What did that mean to you to be like neck and neck with Magic Johnson? Knowing what his basketball career ended up being.
I never looked at it that way. Magic was, like I said, we were recruited, kind of together in some ways. I never, it was just cool in the Big Ten because there were a lot of great players, man. It's like, Iowa had Ronnie Lester, Illinois had, I can't remember his name right now, but they had every team in the Big Ten had studs, right? And it was like every time you stepped on the floor, it was, you had some great competition. And so I never really looked at that whole thing as a head to head with me and Magic or anything like that. But it's just funny so I started getting this nickname White Magic, right? Which I couldn't stand. So I remember,
wow.
I remember when I got drafted by the Sixers and I go, hey, how do you think of that nickname? I said, it's cool if you want to call Magic Black Magic. Right? Otherwise, forget about it. It's like I don't want a nickname that's White Magic, right? So, so nicknames are never. I had poor man's Larry Bird. You had all this other shit, right? So, So it was just, but it's cool when people still kind of look at you, kind of in that same kind of mold or game,
Yeah, fair enough. I do got to ask you though. Obviously, you moved on to Syracuse afterwards. Before you moved to Syracuse, you were actually named to the first team All Big Ten rookie. You go to Syracuse, and your first year there, you win a championship, but you win the Big East championship on a tip-in. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was because I had the red shirt, and it's funny when I went to Syracuse, there was no Carrier Dome. There was no Big East Conference. I went to Syracuse because I really liked Syracuse. Right. And I liked the way they played, the style they ran. And by the time I'm playing, there's a Carrier Dome and there's a Big East Conference. Right. It was crazy. And it became the hottest conference in the country. And so my first year was a rough year. My sophomore year, my first year I could play, Jim Boeheim and I we clashed a little bit. He wanted me to be a certain thing for his team. And he wanted me more of a power forward type of guy. And I'm saying, I can do that for you. I can rebound and guard and be the power forward guy, but I got to have the ball. I got to play it a certain way. And so we kind of I played like crap. It was a crap year for 3/4 of the year. And then he actually benched me. And I said, hey, I 100% agree. I benched me too. Okay. I just want you to promise me one thing. I said, if I work and I come back, you give me another shot. Right. And we actually it was a little bit more volatile than that. But so I came back and this whole season turned around and I ended up getting we played the Big East tournament was actually in Syracuse. And we beat St. John's and Wayne McCoy. We beat them first game. We beat Georgetown second game, and then we beat Villanova in triple overtime. And I got the tip in to win it, and I got the MVP. So everything just kind of changed. And the crazy thing back then, because the Big East was a new conference, we didn't have an automatic bid to the NCAA because it was a brand new conference. So we win the Big East tournament, but we didn't get a bid because we really didn't have a good year till the end. So we go to the NIT, but back then the NIT was actually cool. It was good tournament. So we went to the championship of the NIT, and we played Michigan with Mike McGee. We played Marquette with Doc Rivers. We had all these teams you had to beat along the way to get there, and it was a great thing. But like I said, we easily could have been a hot NCAA tournament, but team, but it just didn't happen.
That is crazy.
That is crazy, 100%. That really is crazy. But I want to ask you though. Obviously Russell Westbrook just beat Oscar Robertson for his triple doubles and whatnot. But in 1983, you recorded the first ever triple double in conference history. Do you ever think about that accomplishment?
To me, it wasn't a big deal because if you looked at my stats, there's probably 15 games where I was off by one, off by a rebound, off by an assist or something. It's just kind of the way I played. And even, you got to remember, even stats, they weren't even, like I'd finish a game, I know I had 10 assists, I had 3, right? So like even the way they kept stats sometimes, they're going, seriously? Or like I remember Magic Johnson played at our place in Minnesota and he had like 12 assists. I go, I'm down at his place and I got 1. I go, wait a minute, come on, right? So it was just kind of the way I played, and I do have one regret. I kind of got caught up in that whole thing about this Magic, passing and doing all this and leading the Big East in assists and all that. I regret that. I would have, if I could do it again. I'd average 20. I'd average 10 boards and whatever assists I got. Because what happened is people started focusing in on the passing, and then people start saying, well, you can't shoot. What do you mean I can't shoot? I averaged 25 a game in the Worlds for Canada. I can shoot. It's like, but people just start focusing on different things. And it's amazing what you know now. Like if I get 2 more rebounds a game, I'm a double guy, right? And that people look at that a whole different way. So, like there's a lot of things you go back and do, but one thing I definitely would have done, if you're open, I'll get you the ball. I'll find you. That was the issue. But I would focus more on making sure that, I scored a little bit more just so people wouldn't, like great example is Chris Mullin. People talked about, man, look, this guy can shoot. He can score. Wow, what a great passer. Nobody said he couldn't pass. Right?
Wow.
But I'm a great passer, but I can't shoot that well. It makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
So I would have flipped it around.
Fair enough.
So I'm gonna we're gonna vary through this a little bit. Chop wood, right? In 1983, you do get drafted first round in the NBA to the 76ers. Talk us through the emotions of that day until you got drafted.
It was kind of crazy because the teams Washington was at 10, I think. They were talking. Portland was at Portland, I think, was at 15. Sixers were at 17. San Antonio at 19. Those are the teams that I keep hearing. And Boston, the day before the draft, my agent met me at the airport and said that Red Auerbach is trying to move up to get me because they had the last pick of the first round, right? And actually, my junior year at the Big East tournament, Jack Donahue was sitting with Red Auerbach. And Red Auerbach told him if I came out, he would take you would get me. But see, there was no guarantees back then. So if Red Auerbach didn't get me and I fall in the draft, then what happens, right? So anyway, I knew that those teams were in the mix. And the one player that was kind of the one guy that was right with me was Clyde Drexler, right? So I knew that if Portland could get Clyde, they'd take Clyde. If Philly could get Clyde, they'd take Clyde. And if San Antonio could. So it was Portland took Clyde, Philly took me, right? And it was a chance at 10 with Washington, but they took Jeff Malone, right? So it's kind of you knew all these things, but you really didn't know anything. It's not like today. I tell people that the day before the draft, the Sixers flew me down. And so they, because I have surgeries on my knees and stuff like that. So they wanted to do a physical. And You know what my physical was? I walk in the doctor's office. He bends my knee. How's that feel? I said, good. All right, you're good. I'm telling you right now, this is the honest to God's truth. If you took that body I had, if you remember, I had elbow surgery, knee surgery, I had back surgery, I had all this stuff happen to me. If you took that same body and evaluated the way they do today, I might not have even been drafted, right? So it was pretty funny, man. I was laughing. The guy bends my knee. You good? Yeah, I'm good. And I sat down in a room with all the coaches, the owners, the GM, everybody. They did this rapid fire interview for about an hour, and then basically, again, I knew that if it wasn't Clyde, it was going to be me, and that's what ended up happening.
Kind of hit on our next point, and just coming from your perspective, you're only able to play 28 games due to injury. How tough is it to bounce back from an injury mentally?
Well, here was the problem. Back then, very few teams. Okay, there were a few teams that didn't value a first-round pick. Sixers had money. You look at Lakers, they could just dispose of a first-round pick. Made no difference. And you got to remember, you weren't locked into big money like you are today, right? Mm-hmm. So, and injuries were a whole different animal. I got hurt early in my rookie year, and nobody cared. Nobody, I had to go get I couldn't even stand up. My ankle was this big. I had to hop to the bathroom in the morning on my other foot just to go to the bathroom. And I'm playing, right? I'm playing. And finally, I can't do anything. And I have to, I end up, sorry, I got something came in here. So I had to go, my agent got another doctor that had to go look at my ankle, do everything. And I end up having a stress fracture, torn ligaments, all this other stuff. And that ultimately cost me a whole season. And what happens is everybody looks at you like you're injury prone, right? It's not like you had one injury that wasn't handled. It's like this guy's hurt all the time, right? And that was it. That stuck with me, and I could not get rid of it. And then, like I said, my history, my body, like I said, I had knee surgeries, I had, like I said, ankle, all this stuff. So, I went to Europe, and still, even over there, I mean, I had injuries, and quite honestly, based on my medical history, it's amazing I was able to have the career I had. But unfortunately, like I said, if a player sprains an ankle today, he might not play for 6 weeks before he's 100% ready to go. Back then, like I landed on Bobby Jones's foot in practice. My ankle was this big. I had to drive myself to the hospital, right? They drained my ankle. You don't drain an ankle right after you injure it. They drained my ankle, and I played 48 hours later. And it's like, wow. That was the beginning of the end. So it was a different world. Players are very fortunate today that that's not the way it's handled. Your body is actually a priority. I mean, there's players today. I mean, OG Anunoby, you're drafted with an ACL injury. You're drafted, right? I mean, back in my day, you got an ACL injury. Goodbye. See ya. You're done. Yeah. So it's an entirely different world. And players are very fortunate.
And looking at everything, to ask you this question to conclude, or coming to the end of this show is, if you could go back in time, what would you change about your playing career?
Honestly, you have this, I have no regrets. First of all, no regrets, right? You live, you do things, you learn, right? That's the most important thing. You learn as you go. If I was able to change anything, what I would have done, there's several things I keep thinking I would have done. Number one, I would have scored more. Okay, that would have been easy to do. I would have scored more in college. The second thing, I wanted to play in the Olympics in '84, right? But pros weren't allowed to play. I got drafted by the world champions, the NBA, the Philadelphia 76ers. And I'm young and stupid. I go, they got Dr. J, Bobby Jones at my position, right? But I'm thinking I'm playing, right? I'm going to play. Yeah. So I remember Jack Donahue mentioned this to me. He goes, what if you go to Europe for a year, and you can play in the Olympics because you're not a pro, right? and then you can re-sign with Philly, or if they trade your rights, whatever. And if I could go back, I would have done that. Being drafted by the NBA champions, I could have been the highest paid player in Europe. I could have played in the '84 Olympics. And Dr. J or Bobby Jones, whenever I went back to them, could be either retired or getting ready to step out. Because, see, when they had my pick, they were actually anticipating they would be retiring, but they didn't. So, again, without any regrets, but if there was something that I think I should have done, I would have gone to Europe instead of going to the Sixers.
Wow. Okay. And I love this now because all these theories and these hypotheticals, we love to conclude this show with a game called In a Perfect World. So, Leo, I'm very intrigued to hear. I'm very intrigued to hear your answer right here, and I'm going to put you through a scenario. And all you're going to do is simply fill in the blanks. So you are done. You understand the game? You understand
I hope so.
Okay, we'll see. So you're done. You're done high school now. You do what you have to do. In a perfect world, you are a 5-star recruit. You are like you were. You have a lot of offers from everywhere in the world, in the NCAA, of course, right? You can't pick Minnesota. You can't pick Syracuse. In a perfect world, and let's put it in this scenario: the style of play now, the coaches now. Which team in the NCAA would you go to in this perfect world? Things are different now. Style of play, running gun, methodical, stretch fives. The game's a little bit different. Where would you go now?
It's an interesting question. Okay. Now, where would I go now? How about if I could go back to play for UNLV with Jerry Tarkanian? Jerry Tarkanian, UNLV. How's that?
Okay.
That's great. That is a great answer. I like that a lot.
Plus, I like the sun and I like the heat, and I want to be in Vegas. How's that?
Hey, that's not. You can't ask for anything more. Now, let's continue this perfect world. You're there. You do what you got to do as a rookie, double-digit scorer. You are on the freshman all-rookie team, and now you start to get on the lottery board, right? And then you know how it goes. You can't dictate where you go in the lottery, but depending on the interviews, you could kind of verbally say, I like this organization. Oh, this wasn't to, where I'm going with this. So you're on the lottery board, right? You can't dictate where you go in the NBA, but in the perfect world, you get this chance. Where would you go? Again, we're going to put the coaching staff in today, location-wise in today, and the way teams play today in terms of their organization. Where would you go?
And you can't pick Philadelphia.
Raptors. Oh, Toronto Raptors or the Miami Heat?
Or the Miami Heat. Okay.
Yeah.
The Miami Heat. Let's go for the sake of this.
There's always sun in my answers. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I'm starting to see that.
So let me ask you this, Leo. Are you going to the Tampa Raptors or are you going to the Toronto Raptors?
No, I want to be in the Toronto Raptors. My dream was always to play in Toronto because there was always talk about Toronto getting a team. And Ted Stepien, who owned the Cleveland Cavaliers, said he was going to get a team. And he said, "You're going to be my guy," and it never happened. So, I'd like to have that dream happen.
Fair enough.
Damn. Okay, so for the sake of this, we're going to put you in Miami. For the sake of this perfect world, we'll put you in Miami, right? So now, the next 4 years, you're doing a spectacular job. You're the leading scorer on the team. You are the franchise player after this rookie contract is done. Right now, I'm going to put you through a little scenario here. Now, especially this is great because their luxury tax is great. Their tax is great. They're not getting taxed like that. You have the opportunity with today's people and who's in the game today. You have the opportunity to get 2 people on your team. Try to persuade them to come in. I'll give you the rules. One of the guys has to be either a rookie or a sophomore. The other guy has to be done his 4 years. Who are those 2 guys in the NBA today that you're saying, hey, we got to come, we got to do it down big in South Beach?
Okay, so I'm in Miami, right?
You're in Miami.
I got my team. I got my guys. I got my Jimmy Butler, right? I got my Bam Adebayo. I got my Tyler Hero. I'm good. See, I'm old school now. I'm not out recruiting 50 guys to play with. And I'm at Miami. I got my boys. I'm good.
And we're going to leave it at that. I like that. I like that a lot. That is a different feel to this show. He said he's old school. He's putting it out there. And I love that team and where they're going to go with it. And those guys are going to continue to develop. Last question here. Who are the guys on TV today? I know you're watching a lot of basketball doing your situation, but if you are at home, you know what? I'm going to put on the television today, and I'm going to watch these guys. Who are these guys you enjoy watching?
Announcers?
No, players.
Oh, players. You know what? I like a lot of guys for different things, right? Like I don't watch a game like a normal person. Like I'm looking at little things. I'm looking at how you like I said, I love Jimmy Butler, right? I love Jimmy Butler because I watch the way he gets everybody into the game. I watch when he picks the spots to do his thing. I watch how when it's time, he's going, hey, come on, hop on. I got you. How he interacts. I mean, so I'm watching the game. I'm looking at all that. I'm just not watching, hey, he scores. So, Jimmy, I love. Like I said, Kyle Lowry, man. I love watching Kyle because it's the little things, right? I want to see him talking shit over there. I want to see him getting in that referee's head. I want to see him, you know why he leads in charges? Because he knows the play you're calling. He knows the tendency of the guy with the ball. He knows all that, right? Yeah. So that's the guy I want to play with a guy like that. So when I watch a lot of these guys, I go, I wouldn't want to play with that guy. Or I want to play with that guy. So that honestly, like I look at that a lot of times, like I'll see a guy that everybody's talking about, go, I wouldn't want to play with him. Hell no. So that's the way I kind of look at it a lot of times when I'm watching. Like there's certain guys that, everybody raves about, go, not a chance in hell would I want to play with.
Fair enough. And last question we want to ask, and we ask all of our guests a question before we finish off the show. Who is somebody that you like to see on Talk Your Exposure? But here's the kicker, though. If we can't get them on, you have to help us. You have to help us get them on.
Well, let's see. Who's got some good one? Billy Wennington's great. Billy's you want a Canadian that's got some great championship stories, and Jordan and all that. He played with Michael. Billy's great guy too. Hey, I don't know if you had Matt Devon, but Matty's he's a walking encyclopedia of all kinds of stuff. And Matty's got more information to share with you than any human being alive. So,
fair enough.
There's a couple of guys right there that I think would be a lot of fun.
We'll definitely reach out, and if we need any help, I'll definitely ask you for the help. Leo, just want to ask one last thing. Where can we find you on social media?
What's that?
Where can we find you on social media? What are your social media handles?
I'm pretty simple. I'm at Leo Rautins on Twitter, and I don't even do Instagram. I think it's Twine and Wine with Leo, but it's just I just put something out, and I don't even follow it or do anything. So it's there.
Fair enough.
It's there.
Fair enough. Hey, Leo, we want to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for jumping on today to talk to us about your story. You have an incredible story. And unfortunately, we couldn't get to talk about Canadian basketball today in terms of you coaching. But you've had a lot of success with just basketball in itself, and to see where you're at right now, and to hear your story, and to legitimately hear from you personally, it's not the same as reading it. So we thank you for that. We thank you for giving us your time today.
No, I appreciate it, guys. I had fun. Always good to chat. So if you ever want me to come on again, let me know.
Thank you, Leo. Appreciate it.